Good afternoon. Thank you for joining me here at Toronto Police Headquarters. I'm here to introduce our chief, Bill Blair. He'll be updating the media and the public about a Project Yellowbird. Chief?
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us here today. I'm here to introduce Superintendent Gilbert and some of my senior staff, Staff Superintendent Mario DiTomaso and Deputy Chief Peter Sloly. And we brought them here before you today to give you the preliminary results of a project that was concluded and taken down this morning. And this morning, officers from across the Toronto Police Service, but principally involving investigators from 53, 22, and 32 Division, executed search warrants in the conclusion of Project Yellowbird. And Project Yellowbird was named after and references the picture of the yellow Porsche that you have seen up here, although that's not the actual Porsche that was stolen. That's still in the process of recovery. But the Project Yellowbird involved what we allege to have been a very sophisticated and, up until this morning, highly successful criminal enterprise involving a number of individuals who we allege to be involved in the break and enter into residents across the city of Toronto and in other parts throughout the GTA, and the theft of high-end vehicles and extraordinary amount of expensive jewelry and other valuables. With the conclusion of this project, a number of search warrants have been executed. As you will hear, millions of dollars in stolen property and vehicles has been or is in the process of being recovered. Every year in the city of Toronto, approximately 8,000 people are victimized by break and enter. And in addition to those crimes, nearly 4,000 motor vehicles are stolen. And although we've made progress in the city of Toronto in reducing crime and victimization, there is unfortunately still an inappropriate and unacceptable level of crime and victimization that is taking place. With the advent of new immobilizer technology for high-end vehicles, what we have seen is a new crime emerging, a crime where criminal organizations and criminal gangs are involved in breaking into people's houses in order to obtain the keys for those vehicles so that they might be stolen. And the vast majority of cars that are stolen in the city of Toronto are quickly recovered in the city of Toronto, but there is a criminal enterprise that has been involved in the theft of very high-end vehicles and the transshipment of those vehicles out of the country, principally to Eastern Europe and other parts of the world where those vehicles are sold for an extraordinary profit. And this investigation, Project Yellowbird, brings to a successful conclusion an investigation of persons who we allege to have been involved in these offenses. I'm going to now ask Superintendent Gilbert to come and give you some of the particulars of this investigation and its conclusion. And I also wish to advise you that tomorrow morning, the investigators who have been involved in this case will be available to the press, and they'll have at that time an opportunity to give you greater particulars of the property that's been seized, the charges that have been laid, and the persons who we are placing before the courts. I believe this is an extremely important investigation. The results of this are results that are going to make a difference and make our city a safer place. I believe at the conclusion of this project, we have turned off a pipeline that was victimizing people in this city and creating a very unsafe situation because residents were being broken into, people were being put at risk in order for people to gain access to this property. And so with today's successful conclusion of this project, we believe we've made a very significant dent in their ability to continue victimizing the people of Toronto. And I'd now like to ask Superintendent Gilbert to come up and share with you some of the results of their work. Thank you.
Good afternoon. By way of introduction, back in December during the ice storm, a yellow Porsche Carrera was stolen from a residence in 32 Division in North Toronto. It's that Porsche Carrera, as the chief has mentioned, is the subject of our takedown project, Project Yellowbird. 32 Divisions started an investigation into that stolen Porsche and managed to develop a number of leads. Subsequently to that, 53 Division also experienced a number of high-end break and enters targeting residences and the keys to vehicles, and in some cases the vehicles themselves were actually taken, as well as a large quantity of property from each of the residences. These break and enters continued both in 32 Division, 53 Division, and 22 Division, bringing together the three major crime units from 32, 53 and 22 under the leadership of Detective Dave Zajac from 32 Division. Through the combined efforts of the three divisions, a number of other partners in law enforcement were brought into the mix. York Regional Police, Peel, Halton, Niagara Region, to name a few. Canada Border Security Agency also played a key role. Through our work with our partners, we identified a group that had been victimizing, we allege, residents of Toronto for an extended period of time. Today was the culmination of a long-time investigation into those 9 individuals, 8 of whom were arrested this morning when we executed search warrants throughout the GTA in cooperation with our other partners in law enforcement. In addition to those 8 that were arrested, there's another party that's still outstanding, and if he's listening to this news conference, I would urge him to contact his lawyer and arrange to surrender at any local police station. We executed 9 criminal search warrants into residences as well as a business. To date, as a result of the warrants that we executed today, we recovered, and as well as the investigation, we've recovered 23 of these high-end vehicles, and some of these vehicles are the Porsche Carrera, Bentley, Aston Martin, Mercedes SUVs, BMW SUVs, BMW 6 Series, all of which have very high retail values. To date, we've recovered 23 of these autos, and conservatively, the estimate on the value of those cars is about $2.3 million. 4 of the vehicles were located as they arrived in Europe, including Yellowbird, the Porsche Carrera. Those 4 vehicles that we were able to recover with Canadian Border Security as well as other law enforcement in Europe are currently on their way back to Canada to hopefully be reunited with their owners. As I indicated earlier, there's a large amount of property that has been located in all of the residences and the business and the storage units. This property ranges from jewelry, imitation firearms, designer clothing, designer purses, and it's requiring an extensive amount of time for our investigators to catalog and sort through it. As a result, those investigators are quite busy today, not only processing the accused, but trying to sort through all of the property. And tomorrow, we hope to have more information for you, as well as be able to provide some more information on the type of property, as well as an indication as to how we're going to try to reunite owners with the property that we've recovered.
Questions? Yeah, what do you know about the one person who you're still looking for? Are you releasing his name?
Not at this time. We're not releasing his name, but I will indicate that he's a male, approximately 37, and we're in the process of obtaining a warrant for his arrest.
How did they can you give us some more detail about how the 9 people allegedly all worked together?
The
Give us a scenario of how they operated, if you wouldn't mind.
The standard break and enter that we've been dealing with has been 2 or 3 individuals pulling up into one of our residential areas, driving a high-end vehicle themselves. So they blend in to Forest Hill, Rosedale, wherever they happen to be. They would blend in, and majority of the neighbors would not think anything of seeing a Mercedes where they would normally see a Mercedes in their neighbor's driveway. And while they were there, obviously they would gain entry to the residence, steal what they could, and in particular, if they could, they would remove the vehicles.
What time of day would these crimes occur?
They would mainly occur during daylight hours.
When did this investigation begin, and do you think there are more cars that need to be recovered, or have you found them all?
We have not found all of the vehicles, and that investigation is still continuing. As I indicated, a number of the cars have been located in storage units, and we're still working our way through the property that we have recovered, and I'm optimistic that our investigators are going to be able to link the accused to more storage units where we will recover more vehicles.
How many victims do you think there were in total here, approximately?
I can't give you an exact number on that right now, but, you know, we're dealing with at least 23 cars, so 23 families were victimized.
When did this investigation begin?
The first B&Es that we started to see, high-end B&Es involving vehicles, were around December during the ice storm. And one of the things that was very noticeable throughout Toronto at the time was snow removal. And even though people were away from their homes, they might have had somebody clearing the snow, but there were still indications that there was still no vehicle using the address. Mail wasn't being picked up, newspapers weren't being picked up, and it left clear signs to our offenders that the residences were actually unoccupied.
So did many of those offenses occur during Christmas break, or?
They've been occurring for the last several months.
So which countries in Europe were these 4 cars found? You mentioned Europe, but where?
We've had, Yellowbird was actually recovered in Lithuania. We've had 2 in Germany, and the 4th one, I can't recall at this time.
Did they arrest people there that were trying to pick up the car?
As far as I know, that's still being investigated on that end. So,
Specifically, how would they gain access to the cars and drive them off?
well, the type of vehicle that we're talking about has immobilizer technology. So most of the modern cars that everybody is driving have a key that, unless it's with that particular car, because it has a chip in it, you can't start the car. So it's not like an older car from, say, the 70s where you'd rip the wires out from under the dash. You need the actual key for that car in order to drive it and operate it. So the break and enters, when they're looking for those vehicles, they were primarily targeting the keys for the vehicle. Anything else that they found in the residence was incidental to what they really wanted, which was the vehicles.
Have you been able to find all the vehicles in the reported break-in?
We have a number of vehicles that are still outstanding, and that investigation is continuing.
What led you to these people in particular?
I'm not at liberty to go into the details of that at this time.
Did any homeowners, or the vehicle owners ever encounter or run into these people? Or they responded by any of the people who were victimized?
As I indicated earlier, they were driving vehicles that blended into the area. And there was several times that neighbors would say that they noticed something that was slightly amiss, or a stranger in the driveway, but they didn't really put 2 and 2 together that the person didn't belong there. And it was just in relation to the type of vehicle that they were driving, and they seemed to fit the area. In some cases, we did have neighbors phone the police. We did have neighbors also write down license plate numbers. Continue to be vigilant and look out for their neighbors and look out for one another. It was only through a lot of the information that we did get from neighbors that we were able to start putting all of the pieces together and link different people to it.
This pipeline, so they would get a vehicle or they would get stolen merchandise, then what would happen with them?
If we're talking the vehicles,
Would they start selling, would they start talking the jewelry, would they start selling the bags? I mean, what are you doing? What's this pipeline?
if we're referring to the vehicles to get them across into Europe, that was a matter of they would park it or put it in a storage container and just wait and see if the vehicle was equipped with a GPS. And if the vehicle was equipped with a GPS, then sometimes the vehicle was immediately recovered. Sometimes they would try and disable the GPS. But for the most part, they would leave the vehicle someplace and wait and see what happened, just to see if the heat was off it. And then that vehicle would quickly make its way into a cargo container for shipment over to Europe.
How long did they typically wait to make sure that there wasn't, the car wasn't traceable?
That depended on them. One of the vehicles we recovered today was stolen in April, and they actually moved it last night into a to a shipping container for shipment to Europe last night. So, I think at this point in time, I'd just like to wrap it up and turn it back over to the chief. I can indicate that tomorrow the investigators will be at 32 Division, and they will be available to answer some of your questions and give you a lot more detail as to what we've recovered and what the next steps are in the investigation.
I just want, can you please clarify, somebody, were the break-ins in Toronto, you mentioned the 3 divisions, were all the break-ins focused in Toronto, and the extra police services involved, like Peel, York, Halton, all of those, what was their role? Or can you just clarify?
Yeah.
Was the ring operating specifically in
So my understanding is that the targets were of in more affluent neighborhoods, where there were high-end vehicles, where there was a significant amount of very expensive property. They seem to have focused on in those areas. Certainly within Toronto, our experience was those were the neighborhoods that were being targeted, but primarily because those were the vehicles, but also the certain residents that were being targeted. I believe that when our investigators have concluded the tally of the property seized, the recovery of property in this investigation will be in the amounts of several $1 million, perhaps even tens of millions of dollars. But the number of vehicles and property that was taken that has not been recovered is also significant. So the conclusion of this investigation is not measured merely by what has been recovered, but by the dismantling of the criminal enterprise. One of the things that is unique about this organization is the level of sophistication. This isn't a bunch of kids going out and breaking into houses during the lunch hour. This is, we allege, a sophisticated, organized criminal enterprise. People who are working together with various skill sets for the enterprise in order to obtain property, both motor vehicles, as we've said, but also jewelry and other valuables, and to dispense with that property, either by shipping it overseas, because it's very difficult to sort of re-VIN and then sell a high-end vehicle, but it's not that difficult if you take it into another jurisdiction. Particularly, there are jurisdictions in the world where it's extremely difficult for us to follow that up. But also the sale of the theft of other property. And so this was a sophisticated operation. This is organized crime. And the charges that have been laid not only pertain to the theft of the property and the theft of those vehicles, but also through the participation in a criminal enterprise. And this is the first time in my awareness that these type of charges have been laid for a break and enter and auto theft ring. But this is a ring, we allege, and this is an organized criminal group. And by its dismantling, its success is not only measured by the number of vehicles, which is very substantial, but we had over 45 high-end vehicles stolen in the last 12 months in the city of Toronto, and we haven't recovered those vehicles. Today and through this investigation, I believe the recovery of about 23 of those vehicles. But we also know 4 of them were recovered in Europe and are on their way back. But we haven't caught everything in this net. But what we do believe we have successfully done through this investigation is end this criminal enterprise's ability to do this. And you'll have to forgive us, and we'll certainly instruct our investigators not to reveal the investigative techniques, all of the investigative techniques that were employed in this investigation, because quite frankly, if we do that, criminal organizations go to school on that information. And so we'll be as discreet as we need to be, because we want to continue to thwart this type of victimization taking place in our city. But I do believe that this is an extraordinary investigation, and as the superintendent has indicated, Yellowbird begins with the theft of a yellow Porsche in Toronto during the ice storm last year. But the evidence in our investigation revealed that this criminal enterprise did not start during the ice storm. This criminal enterprise has been victimizing people in the city of Toronto for some period of time, and they have become bolder and quite, through their advanced criminal enterprise, become more successful in victimizing more people. And so with the dismantling of this, I believe to be a very significant step forward. It would also remind people that there's a new type of crime that's being perpetuated here. You know, I don't think there's any of us, as we think about going home at the end of the day, and we take our car keys and we walk in the house, unlock the door, and throw it usually in a dish or on a hook right by the front door. Those keys are very valuable. And with the new immobilizer technology, the best way to steal a car is to get your hands on those keys. And so we should be always more careful with those keys and protect ourselves. And be very mindful as well that when we take those keys into our house, there are thieves that want to obtain them. And so we need to be very careful and to alert people of that. And I also want to be able to assure the people of Toronto. You know, the detectives who did this work, normally when we do a big gang investigation or a big organized crime investigation, we hand it over to our organized crime enforcement people, you know, people who have the time, the resources, the expertise to do this type of investigation. These break-and-enters were happening in our local divisions. And the local divisions, who have 37 other things to do every day, got together, worked collaboratively together, shared information, reached out to the expertise that exists in our service and other police services, reached out to international partners through the CBSA, and have been able to dismantle this gang that was victimizing people in their neighborhoods, in their communities, and in their divisions. And I think it's a very successful project. And tomorrow, we're hoping that we'll have the opportunity to present to you more detail on what has been seized, what charges have been laid. But there's an opportunity for us not only to announce the success of this project, but to inform the public on what they need to do to be safe and to work collaboratively with us. You know, one of the things that makes it possible for these gangs to be successful is for good people to not observe and not detect and not report some of the things that are going on in their neighborhood. Now, I'm not talking about wealthy neighborhoods, but in every neighborhood. And when people pick up the phone and they call us because they've seen something suspicious or something that concerns them, if they record a little bit of information and share that with us, when we all work together, we can make a difference, and I think there's evidence of that in this investigation as well. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.